What is up, everybody? We are back with a brand new episode of the Silver Lions Playbook podcast. We are back with our co-host Thomas Urich.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of Lion stuff. We addressed the free agency last week and went over a list of guys, that I would love to see added to the Detroit Lions. But next, we'll be talking about the Senior Bowl and what that means, like what coaching it means, what it means for the GM, how they're going to get a little bit better looks at these players, and what it means for the future and for these players as well. And then we'll talk about our comp picks and our new offensive coordinator, and then we'll do our around the NFL segment, and then we'll do our Super Bowl predictions to wrap the show up. But let's get right into the Senior Bowl stuff. So the Senior Bowl obviously is a game where all the seniors come and they play, and I think it's Mobile, Alabama, right?
Yeah.
They come and they practice for a week together with NFL coaches so that the NFL teams get to see like who these kids are in a weekly practice, get to see how they react, how they act in certain situations. And personally, as a Lions fan, my favorite thing about this was that we coached it. It was awesome because we've done it before, but it was Matt Patricia. So but this time it's like we get a fresh look at these players, like I said before, but we also get a more in-depth look at these players than other teams get. That's one of the best parts about this, is that coaching at the Senior Bowl means you get to see how they react to you instead of how they would react to another situation or another coach or another scheme or whatever. You get to see how they fit in your scheme. You get to see how they fit it with your culture. And I think that's the biggest thing in Detroit right now is culture. We're trying to make a legit dynasty. I mean, everybody is, but at this point it feels like we're trying to get to the point where we're not just going to be one of those, oh, we went to the playoffs 3 times in 5 years and didn't do anything. It seems like we're going to try to be one of those. We've made the playoffs every year the last 5 years and it's getting close. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I feel like the Senior Bowl, being able to coach that, is a good first step in our draft process. Well, not maybe a first step, but a good, third or fourth step in our draft process, being able to see these guys a little bit closer, a little bit deeper. And these are a lot of guys that are under the radar to begin with. I mean, a lot of these players, aren't on anybody's top 100 prospects. So these guys could fly up a draft board. And, a guy like Malik Willis, we're seeing right now, he's not necessarily underrated coming into the draft, but he's really flying up boards now after he put on a show at the Senior Bowl. And not necessarily in the game, but in practices specifically, he was great. And I just feel like that is what the Senior Bowl is about. It's about letting these kids come in that don't really think they have a shot, coming in and being able to put on a show for these coaches and show that they belong and that they can make it in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So it was the Lions, and what other NFL team coached the other side? Was it Jacksonville?
I think it was the Jaguars. I'm gonna look that up to make sure.
But regardless, that's like a really good opportunity for any NFL team to see players early and see how they react to coaching staff, and it's really nice to kind of have that closeness this early in process.
It was the New York Jets.
New York Jets, okay.
Yeah, that coached the other side. But another thing I want to add is that not only do you, like we said, you get all of that looks at players and, the deeper looks at players. Now they do where the assistant coaches are the head coach. And, I think it was Deuce Staley was our head coach at the Senior Bowl this year. And he's our running backs coach. So we're seeing also being able to get a look at these staff guys in new positions is really cool, I think, throughout the league, because not only are you giving them an opportunity to see what it's like to, be a head coach or an offensive coordinator, call plays in that, level of game, but it's also you're letting other teams see how they would act and react and what they would do in these situations. So I think it's just a really
Very true.
cool thing all around for coaches and players. But specifically for the Detroit Lions, I think, like I said before, it means a lot because as a team that's rebuilding, you want to get all the looks you can possibly get. You want to get every little detail possible because we do have a lot of draft capital right now. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can always pick the wrong player no matter what the draft capital. So we really need to get down in the dirt and figure out who is going to make a difference on this football team, because those are the guys that we want to draft. We don't want to draft guys that can fill a role necessarily, because we're not there yet. I mean,
Right.
in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, those are guys that you would love to get, role players. But in the first 3 rounds, we're looking for guys that can come in and make plays and make a difference on this football team,
Oh yeah.
because that's really what we need. We got role players right now. We just need some difference makers. And speaking of that, comp picks, we got a 3, a 4, and a 5. And that's beautiful because now
Oh yeah.
not only did we have 2 firsts, early second, early third, we also have an extra 3, 4, and 5 that we can make moves, and we can trade up, trade down. We can do a lot of different stuff this offseason, and I'm really excited as a Lions fan to see where this goes in the free agency and draft.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I'm very curious to see if you guys are going to keep the Rams pick, or you're going to move up, because to me, I feel like a lot of the options that we discussed are not going to be there around the end of the first round. So like, I think the Lions in particular have a great opportunity to trade up and get like a guy that they really like, and that's awesome as a rebuilding team to have all that draft capital, so you can make those type of moves.
Right. And I mean, think about it. Like you said, we could even take, pick 31 or 32, and that third that we got in the comp picks, trade that to move up probably 20 spots, 10 spots in that first round. And then that way you
Yeah.
really get a guy like, I mean, think about it. We could get, let's say we trade down, right, in the first pick at 2. We trade down to like 4 or 5, pick up a little bit of draft capital along the way, get Kyle Hamilton, right? We're at 32. We take 32, one of our 3s, and like say a 5th, and we get like a 7 back and like pick 12, and we get David Ojabo. That's a beautiful draft in my opinion, because you get a difference maker at safety, and then you get a difference maker at pass rusher as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a great draft. And those are like 2 guys I hear the Lions are interested in, so good picks.
And I would love to see, I mean, that's just, a dream scenario, of course. I don't think that actually happens. I think getting both of those players would be remarkable. And I mean, that's kind of what we did last year. We did that with Penei Sewell. That was the guy we wanted all along, and he's who we got. And for some reason he fell to us. It just happened out that way. We didn't even have to move up for him. I don't think that'll happen this year, but I think we'll be okay no matter what we do. We'll figure it out. And I believe in Brad Holmes to draft the right guys for this team, and Dan Campbell to coach them correctly, and the rest of this coaching staff as well. But
I think that the Lions are a really good position administratively. I'm a really big fan of Holmes.
Agreed.
So
it's funny.
I have no doubts that
I don't know if I've said this
I have no
before.
doubts that.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
No, we got something going on with the connection here, I think. But I don't know if I've said this before, but Brad Holmes kind of reminds me of The Rock in his charismatic ways and the way he talks and stuff. He just reminds me of The Rock a bit.
Well, with all my hate towards Rams, the Rams have made a really good team, and they've made so many like specific moves and maneuvers that like allow them to be in this position. And so, as much as I hate them, I gotta give them credit to being a great squad. So, and that's Holmes has a huge part of that. And for him to be the Lions GM now is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, once we put that, that first staff together, I was so excited. I was like, wow, this feels different. It's a different culture. It's a different way of doing things. We didn't just go, well, this is a winning organization. Let's just take somebody from there. We took what felt like a different style of GM and head coach. Like, it's funny because everybody laughed at us after we did it because, who the hell are these guys? Oh, Dan Campbell's biting off kneecaps. What the hell is this? And it's like, well, you will see in a couple years when the Lions are actually good, and you'll see why we hired these guys. But
Yeah.
speaking of hiring new guys, we promoted Ben Johnson, our tight ends coach, to offensive coordinator. And I love this move for a couple reasons. First of all, I love it because I love I've always thought this, and I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but I've always loved promoting from within. I feel like the best teams, the best businesses, they promote from within, because that means you're getting the best talent as they come in. You know what I mean? You're getting the cream of the crop at your position coaches, and then that way they can move up. And promoting from within with Ben Johnson is a great sign for the Detroit Lions, making a difference in culture and just making a difference overall. And another reason I really love it is the on-field stuff. I mean, we saw last year after Ben Johnson took over the offensive coordinator spot, because he wasn't technically the OC. Dan
Yeah.
Campbell was calling plays, and Glenn, or not Glenn,
Is that going to continue to happen, by the way? Is Campbell still going to be calling plays?
I think with this, that means he is, personally, because Ben Johnson was more of like a assistant offensive coordinator last year.
Okay.
And I feel like that's how it's going to stay. He's kind of going to help draw up plays, give Dan, uh, help him in really any way he can, give him ideas on what to do. Here's a play I think we should run, type stuff. But I think down to it, Dan Campbell will make the decision. But I just love it because of that reason also. That was the third reason I was going to mention, was Dan Campbell probably will still be calling plays. And that was when our offense looked the best. And
Yeah.
that's really all you want. You want your team to look the best as possible. So really just love it. And the fact that we promoted from within makes me feel like there's a real culture shift happening right now, because it means to me Dan Campbell really likes the guys he chose in this staff and put together to begin with. So I just really love that as well.
And I was going to say that I agree that the ideology of hiring within is a good one, but it really depends on the staff that you have.
Right.
We both can agree that the Lions hired a really good staff last year, and I think it speaks volumes that they are hiring within, because usually teams that are as bad as the Lions have been historically always hire like from the outside, because those staff is usually not the cream of the crop.
Right.
It's
usually they're
like,
firing somebody and then have
yes,
to get somebody else from somewhere
yep.
else. Which
So
as a Lions fan, we've seen forever. So
yeah, so I really like that the Lions have done this specifically, because it speaks volumes to me that this staff is legit and it's not just like a 1 year thing,
Right. I totally agree with you there. And that's all we got for the Lions this week, because it is Super Bowl weekend. We're probably going to talk a lot more about around the NFL as well. But there's really not too much going on the Lions front outside of those few things. So next we will be bringing up the Brian Flores situation. We talked about this, I think, a little bit last week, but not really in depth. We're probably not going to go super in depth this time either, but I just wanted to talk about it a little bit more. Basically, Brian Flores is just suing the NFL as a whole.
Yeah.
And what would you say? He's calling what racial allegations, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, he's calling discrimination based off
discrimination.
Specifically from what I've read, the New York Giants. Essentially from what I understand, is that the Giants had already hired Brian Daboll as the coach, and Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots head coach, texted uh, Flores thinking that he was Daboll,
Mhm.
congratulating him, which alerted Flores that he's no longer in consideration for a head coaching job. He was just about to go on an interview, and he thought that there should have been a lot more communication with the New York Giants and him,
Mhm.
um, and where the Giants stood as his chances as being the next head coach. Um, and so, based off that, he thinks that like they interview me or they didn't tell me because I'm black, and uh, that's his discrimination part.
Right.
From what I hear.
And I feel like it also is, the Rooney Rule stuff where he feels like the only reason he even was going to be interviewed is because they had to interview uh a black head coach or black coach.
Yeah.
But I feel like personally, number one is we clearly have a discrimination problem in the NFL.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could say, because this is a thing even I've thought in the past, is like you could say, well, statistically, across America, I think the black population is about 20% or 30% or something like that. So it would make sense that, there's only probably 10 out of 30 black head coaches across the league, right? Statistically speaking.
Yeah.
But in the other hand, the NFL is, I think, 70% African American, which, I mean, with that statistic, it kind of flips the other one on its head where you should almost have more black head coaches at that point. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why, because I think Lovie Smith was the only newly hired black head coach. And
Yeah, Tim and Tomlin is the only two
yeah,
black head coaches in the league.
and that just
Um,
baffles me because you'd think with all, because there's been so many great black coordinators that just for some reason stay coordinators, and I don't understand it because all these white coordinators, it's almost like the first year that we hear about, uh I don't know, anybody from Sean McVay's tree. It's like, oh, he's next up. He coached Sean McVay's offense for a season, so he's going to be the next head coach, like Zach Taylor,
yeah.
which has worked out. But I just don't understand why, a guy like Eric Bieniemy hasn't gotten a shot yet. Or there's a couple more. There's assistant coaches and coordinators all over the league that could be worthy of a step up, regardless. But
Yeah.
I don't get it. What's happening? Like, I don't understand what the problem is here.
No, I agree. I think that there's a discrimination problem. I don't really know where it stems from. I don't know if the ownerships are uh more conservative than you know liberal, but something needs to change, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested in the next couple of years just because to me there's a lot of good up and coming black assistants
Mhm.
on many teams. Aaron Glenn, for
Yeah.
example, is
Even
really
Aubrey Pleasant. I mean, the other
Aubrey
Lions
Pleasant
who
is another
coach.
one. Yeah, um, like Gerard Mayo is another one that comes to
Mhm.
mind. And so to me, it would be interesting to see if like these up and coming head coaching candidates will ultimately end up with head coaching jobs. Um, in the for like England, for example, I'll be like super surprised if he doesn't end up being a head coach.
Mhm.
Um, just because I've heard like nothing wrong like about him, and
Yeah.
um, he seems just like this super smart guy, and um, he did really well with New Orleans and then
Mhm.
Detroit last year. So though like I'm gonna be interested to see if this continues to be a problem with the mass of assistants that are doing relatively well being black now.
Right. And I totally agree there. And another thing I would like to say is I feel like, Aaron Glenn already getting head coach. looks at least is a good thing. Aubrey Pleasant has
Yep.
already gotten 2 interviews as a defensive coordinator as well. So
Yep.
it seems to be we're getting on a right trajectory at least, with guys moving up in their position, but it's still not enough, I feel like. And I think a lot of it stems from, like you said before, ownership. It's I don't is there any black owners in the NFL? I'm not sure. I don't think there is one.
Uh, it might not be.
I don't think there is one. And I think that could be where it stems from, because these are all just like 80, 90-year-old white people that have a bunch of money. And I mean,
Yeah.
usually when you see racism, it's usually those type of people. So it would make sense how, that's, and I think it's less to do with the owners not wanting black head coaches. And I think it's more the owners not wanting black GMs, and that trickles down.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think that a lot of associations in America, sports associations should look at the NBA, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the NBA is killing it with
Mm-hmm.
um their non-discriminatory and like non-racist type of stuff. I
Right.
think that they're they're amazing. So um maybe talk to them and see what they do and how they interact with, you know, men of race, and see what you can do better, because it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely disgusting to me that the NFL is still, not uh, right with um, everything politically.
While we're speaking about what the NFL is doing incorrectly, let's talk about Dan Snyder as well, because
Okay.
I feel like this is the perfect um, example of the NFL not doing their job when it comes to ownership. Because, like we said before, a lot of the problems that we see in the NFL, whether it be discrimination or otherwise, is trickling down from ownership. And we've got a guy in Dan Schneider that, I mean, over I think the last 10 years that I can at least remember, has been getting allegations and all types of negative comments against him, and all
Yeah.
types of everything that you could think of. And he just does his own investigation, and then he doesn't find anything, of course, because why would he? And then they just move on. So this year, I think is finally a difference where it's like the NFL is really going to put their own investigation into it. But even then, we probably don't see him moved. We just see him fined. Like,
Yeah.
I, like you said before the podcast, a problem with it is a lot of owners and a lot of GMs and a lot of people across the league like him. So they're not going to vote him out, because that's how this would work. The owners
Right.
would have to vote him out. And I think that's another problem that you're having is like this buddy mentality. It's like with professors, the tenured professors that just do whatever they want
Yeah.
and don't care about anything, and are just like, oh, don't give a shit, whatever. And that's kind of the same thing we're seeing, is these people are looking at it like they're using their seniority and their tenure, as you could say, and going, no, we're just going to band together and nobody's going to get kicked out because we've all done bad shit. You know what I mean? And I feel like
Mhm.
it's like a little like a I don't want to say a cult, but it's like a little like a gang almost of these owners, where
Yeah.
they're all against everybody else. And I don't really like that very much, because now you're seeing guys like Dan Snyder get away with stuff that John Gruden didn't get away with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I also think that part of the problem is that Dan Snyder uh he's put a lot of money towards NFL.
Hmm.
And so um for the NFL to be like, hey, you did all this stuff and now we're gonna fire you or ask you to quit
Hmm.
um because you did all this stuff. I don't think it's a really good look when Dan Snyder has put money in their pockets and
Right.
uh made football in Washington a lot more exciting than it usually would have been, Um, many of his big signings have not worked out, like Albert Hainsworth comes to mind, but like back in those days, like no one expected Washington to be like Upper Haynesgrove type of locations. So
Right.
um, I think that's like him putting money into NFL is another huge factor into it.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely agree there because money is the owner in this entire situation. Money
Yeah,
rules everything. So I get that as well. But I personally just really hope that we finally see him at least in some type of legal trouble, if not having to give up the team, because not only is he doing all this, like, allegedly he's doing all this bad stuff when it comes to like racism and sexual misconduct and stuff like that. It's look at his field, look at his team, look at, what I mean. It's like it
yeah,
seems like everything he does is half-assed almost. Like the stadium is garbage. I mean, it literally fell apart last year at a game.
true. Yep.
It's the most notorious field for injuries.
Is it?
I mean, I saw this picture last, or like 2 months ago, after not 2 months ago. It was right after Chase Young tore his ACL, right?
Okay.
And I saw this picture where it was like all the injuries that have happened on this field. And literally there was like 8 within that 20-yard line, 20-yard
Nice.
spot where Chase Young tore his ACL. It was like RG3's, knee injury.
Yep.
There was I think TJ Watt or JJ Watt tore their shoulder or knee or something bad
I
happened
think it
with
was
them.
JJ.
Yeah, and then there was a couple other ones on there as well, but it was wild. I was like, holy shit. And it was only from like 2014 or something like that, or
Yeah.
2011 or something. And I was
Yes.
just baffled. But that's another thing I think that we really need to press with Dan Snyder is you need to get your facilities up. You got to figure this out because you are a billionaire. You got to be able to put some money back into your organization.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Um, we'll see what happens. I'm with you that I hope he gets something other than like a fine, but
Yeah.
knowing the NFL and knowing the owner association, I don't know if that's completely feasible.
Yeah.
But hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. Most likely nothing happens other than like a couple $100,000 fine, if that.
Yeah.
But I what I really don't want is for them to like take his draft picks or something like that. I feel like that's that's hurting the fan base and the coaches and the GMs more than it is the owner, because at the end of the day he still owns the team and they still make money. Um, I just don't like that very much when you're trying to punish an owner. But moving on to our last segment of the Around the NFL is the last 3 coaches that were hired. So first of all, let's talk about Lovie Smith a little bit, because this kind of
Okay.
has a little bit to do with the Brian Flores situation that we talked about before.
Yep.
Um, I feel like, and we've talked about this before, I feel like Lovie Smith is not, I almost feel like he's kind of like the easy hire for Houston, because rumblings all like off season were Josh McCown.
Yeah.
And well, not off season, but this whole past couple weeks, in terms of coaching in the playoffs, I guess would be the best way to say it. It was Josh McCown pretty much. And then I kept hearing that they were just too scared because he hasn't coached before, which I understand. Like, I wouldn't necessarily want a guy as an NFL head coach who's never coached before. Like, I don't know if I like
Yeah.
that. But it almost felt like weird timing, because I didn't really hear Lovie Smith when it came to any of these coaching jobs, right? And then Brian Flores drops all these allegations. Specifically, Houston was named in there as well. And
Yep.
then they go and hire Lovie Smith, which I'm not saying he's not qualified, because he's been an NFL head coach before. He coached in college the last few years.
Yep.
He's a solid coach. I mean, I don't hate the hire, honestly, but I feel like it's unfair to him to, if they're doing what I think they're doing, to be another one and done like David Culley. Oh, we wanted this guy, we couldn't get him, so we hired somebody else for a year and then we fired him because you took him away from the job he already had. I mean, you moved him states. There's a whole thing going on here where I feel like sometimes these NFL teams clearly don't take into account the personal lives of these people, players or coaches or GMs or anything.
Yeah, and like personally, I would have liked Josh McCown.
Mhm,
I'm a big fan of his. I love like the things I hear about quarterback gurus and
mhm,
not being like head coaches. It's always him and Jordan Palmer. So I think that he does have like a pretty good offensive mind. Um, I just don't know if Houston thought that he was ready yet. I know that Lovie Smith has uh, said that he would want him as in some type of capacity on his team.
mhm,
Uh, that won't be as offensive coordinator because they hired Pep Hamilton as it, but maybe quarterback coach.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's setting up another potential one and done scenario for Lovey in Houston. Um, I don't love the hate that Lovey Smith is getting
Mhm.
because I think that like maybe he doesn't have the access and O's and maybe calling cover two on defense all the time is not the best thing to do. But at least with the Bears, he had his team fight for him. He took a lot of like medium Chicago Bears teams and
Mhm.
made them into something that they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Um, and like '06 is like a perfect example. Like who takes Lex Grossman into a Super Bowl other than Lovie Smith? Um, and so I think he's a decent head coach. I don't think he got the uh, good enough time in Tampa to show that because he had Dakota as the
Yeah.
offensive coordinator and he was gonna get um, taken from someone. Um, and so that's why they promoted him and fired Lovey, but I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't love it either, but I don't also hate it.
Yeah.
So
I think he'll be
good job
more
by
he'll
Houston.
be a lot like Cully, where we see the team do a little bit better than what we assumed they would be. Like we thought they were going to be
Yeah,
trash, and they actually won, I think, 4 games this year.
yeah,
And which I mean that doesn't sound like a lot, but what we thought they were going to be to where they were and
oh
who they
yeah,
played against and who they beat, and not even just losing or not just winning the games. They were even in the games that they lost, they were close sometimes. And I feel like it'll be around the same situation. Depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson, that'll change a lot as well. But
yeah.
next we had the Dolphins hired Mike McDaniel officially, and this was a guy we both wanted, we both loved. I'm surprised more teams weren't in on Mike McDaniel. I mean, it felt like he was getting all the Twitter love these last couple weeks, or even couple months with the head coaching carousel. But his name wasn't mentioned too much in actual rumors outside of Miami. So that was a little weird for me, but I love the hire.
I think that like if you see San Francisco's offense,
Hmm.
you see like a lot of like everyone kind of focuses on Jimmy
Hmm.
Garoppolo and his struggles, and they're not like a prolific offense. A lot of it needs to center around Debo Samuel,
Hmm.
and Elijah Mitchell did a really good job, but not well enough job to have like McDaniel candidate for a lot of the head coaching jobs. Um, and I also really like this for Dolphins.
Hmm.
Um, I think it might be like a McVay-ish hire where like again no one really considered him except for that one team, and
Hmm.
if he ends up doing well, then kudos to them.
I think it was a perfect hire specifically because Tua, they need to get Tua going. They need to get an offense that can actually be good because their defense is legit. I mean, they've had a
Yeah,
legit defense for 2-3 years now, which Brian Flores not being there probably will change that a bit, but their talent is there. So I just feel like their offense is what needs to get going. And to have a young gun offensive guy there in Miami is perfect. It makes sense from a location standpoint. It makes sense from their what they have on their roster as well, because
yeah,
this team has pieces that if they can go in free agency and get an offensive line, the Miami Dolphins might be pretty good next year. I mean, they almost made the playoffs this year without an offensive line. So wait until they get one. And maybe we can see Tua finally turn it on as well. But last but not least, we have the
Yeah, we'll
Saints.
see.
Oh, I think we got a connection problem here.
Yeah, we definitely do.
We
I'm
good now?
good. I think it's
Okay.
on your end.
Okay. That's weird. Are we good now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Everything
I
fine?
can hear it.
Okay. That's weird. I shouldn't be having any. It is my end though. I don't know why it is. That's weird. I'll have to contact Charter about that. Because I pay extra for the good internet, so I don't know what's going on there. But Saints, last but not least, we have Dennis Allen finally getting the job, which we already, kind of saw
Yeah,
from the minute Sean Payton was fired. Makes a lot of sense. The only other guy that I really could have saw them going with was Aaron Glenn because
yeah,
two Saints guys. But you might as well go with the guy who's already in the building. I mean, no reason to go and poach a guy like Aaron Glenn, especially when I think this is going to be a one and done situation. Dennis Allen is using this year.
yeah,
He's basically an interim head coach. Sean Payton is going to come back next year when they have some cap space and try to figure something out. But I mean, I like the hire, what I wanted and what I thought from the beginning. So worked out perfect in that situation.
yeah. Um, Again, like I'm not a huge fan of like one and done. So if that's like the
Yeah.
case, then I would feel bad for Dennis Allen. I also like it's a new team, but
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Allen's tenure in Oakland was really bad. And so like I'm interested to see if he's learned anything from Champagne or any of the other stops that he's been on
Mm-hmm.
to make himself a better head coach. But uh, I was kind of intrigued rather, um, that New Orleans decided to go with him just because he only showed good stuff as a defensive coordinator, not much as a head coach.
Right. Right. Which I mean, maybe it's because, like I said, he already knows and they already know it's going to be a one and done situation. So they already kind of know the team's not going to be great anyway.
Yeah,
And I mean, either maybe he's using this as like another here, I can be a head coach, or he's just doing it because he's like, I'll make some more money. And then when Peyton comes back, I'll just go back to defensive coordinator. But
true.
I don't really know exactly what's going on over there. Who knows? Sean Payton might not come back. It's all up in the air, really. But I also wanted to go over quickly who got hired where and what we were right and wrong about
Okay.
from the beginning. So first of all, Bears hired Matt Eberflus and we got that one right.
Yep.
Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell and we got that one right.
Yep.
Broncos Nathaniel Hackett and we got that one right. Saints Dennis Allen, correct. Jaguars hired Doug Peterson and we did not see that one coming.
Nope.
I think he was on my list, but he was not even close to one of my favorites. And I did
Same.
not see it coming at all, really. And then the Giants hired Brian Dable, which was almost obvious, and obviously we got that one right, especially after they
Yep.
hired the ex Bills guy as their GM.
Yep.
And then the Texans hired Lovey Smith, which we did not get that one right, as we mentioned before.
No one
Really
saw
didn't see
that.
that coming. Yeah. And then the Dolphins hired Mike McDaniel. We got that one right. And the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, and we got that one right. So 5 for
Yep.
7. I mean, I'd say that's pretty good shooting
Not bad.
percentage for head coaching candidates. And this is like not even just from the 2 days before they were hired. This is from like weeks leading up to when they were hired. So
Yeah.
seemed like we had some pretty decent intel on those throughout this process. But next, and to wrap the podcast up, we have the Super Bowl preview. I don't know about you, but I think this is the most excited I've been for a Super Bowl in a while. Um,
Really?
yeah, I'm really excited to see the Super Bowl, man. I feel like it's the most likable Super Bowl really ever. I mean, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals who haven't won a playoff game since 1991. Their second year
Yeah.
quarterback takes their rookie wide receiver and their young team and their young head coach to the Super Bowl. And then you got a guy like Matt Stafford coming from a Bengals like organization, the Detroit Lions, going to, the Rams, getting traded. They, gear up with him and get some other players and some other stuff with him.
Yeah.
And they're in the Super Bowl. So really for me, I'm happy with whoever wins, because as a Lions fan, Stafford, and then as a Lions fan, seeing a team like the Bengals win a Super Bowl, that'd be really, give me a lot of hope for the future.
For sure. Oh yeah. I don't know. I think this game needs to do a lot with the Bengals defense. If they can keep a good pace against the Rams offense, I think this game might be interesting. But I think this game might end up being a blowout, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think there's two ways that it could go, and that's one of them for sure.
And I don't know. I think that this Rams team is so good, and the Bengals offensive line is not great, and I feel like Aaron Donald is gonna have a field day.
And Von Miller.
Yeah, that's no one. Wow. This Rams team, holy smokes. But I mean, we'll see. Like, I think that we all have been expecting this from the Bengals. Like, I feel like every week we've been saying, "Oh, they're not going to win," and they keep doing it. So, like, who knows? Like, maybe we're just counting the Bengals out. But, in my opinion, it's going to be a LA Rams. As much as I hate saying that, it's Super Bowl champs.
I think I agree with that. The one thing too from last week's games that I will take away, specifically the Bengals game, is that the Chiefs came out and beat them up. They beat them up defensively and offensively. The Bengals couldn't get anything going on the offensive side and couldn't stop anything the Chiefs were doing defensively. And I just feel like if that's how it starts this week, it won't end like it did last week with the Chiefs. They won't be able to come back, I don't think. I think this Rams team is built for this. They're made specifically for Super Bowls. You know what I mean? Like they have great pass rushers. They got good DBs to cover the back end.
Yeah.
An elite offense in every way possible. And I just feel like the Chiefs, yeah, they're an elite offense, probably the best offense in the NFL. But their defense isn't up there like the Rams defense is. And I just feel like the Rams defense specifically is going to cause some issues for the Bengals. So if the Bengals get behind, it'll probably stay that way. And I don't see them being able to have a 21-3 comeback and win the game in the end. But I do think it'll be close though. My score prediction is 34-31 Rams.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. You have a lot more confidence in the Bengals than I do. But I think that also like is a testament to how good this LA Rams defense is. Like last week, we can't really consider Kansas City's defense to be great. And so like there was potential for a comeback always. But I think you're right. Like if the Bengals are down early, I don't see like a comeback happening.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Joe Burrow flips.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, there's always a possibility, but I feel like I've been saying it from beginning of the season that the Rams are built perfectly for the playoffs, and they're built to take down these juggernaut teams. And I don't know. I just don't think that, like I said, I just don't think that the Bengals have a real chance if they get down early. But I'm hoping and I'm predicting that that does not happen. And I just really hope it's a good game too. It's gonna really suck if it's a blowout. I would hate to see that.
Me too.
But
as someone in Detroit, how excited are you about this halftime show?
I don't really care, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so long story short, I used to be like the biggest Eminem fan when I was like 13, from like 10 to like 13. And then I started liking other rap music, and then lately I just think Eminem's super corny. So I just hope I just really hope he plays some of his older stuff, like, you know, his classics and not his like newer, like trying to be like these new rappers type of music. Because I just am not really into that. I am excited to see Snoop
Yeah,
Dogg though. That's gonna
yeah.
be nice. And you know, Dre, of course, is gonna be there. It's gonna be a fun halftime show, but personally, I don't really care that much about any of the halftime shows. So like,
Really?
yeah, so
Wow.
like I'll watch them, but it's like, oh, unless it's like one of my favorite artists, which never happens because like I said, I listen to rap. So it would that would never happen. But
I
I
would
don't know,
say
it
that
should
I'm
be
probably
good.
the most excited for his halftime show that I have been for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm a huge rap guy, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah. It should be a good one. I mean, regardless of anything, but um I don't know. I just it's like the commercials, like some people watch the Super Bowl just for the commercials.
Yeah,
I like the commercials, but they're commercials, bro. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
when it
right,
comes down to it, bro, I'm not trying to watch that. They're advertisements. I don't really care that much. Like I'll
right.
watch them and like sometimes they'll be funny and stuff, but I just feel like people put way too much stock into the commercials specifically. Um,
Agreed.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Super Bowl is gonna be a lot of fun regardless. The halftime show should be a lot of fun. Hopefully the commercials don't suck like they have the past couple years. But I think that's all I got for this one. Do you got anything else?
No, actually, I do. I don't know why I said no, no there. um, I just wanted to see what your thoughts on Anthony Lynn to San Francisco, and
Oh
like
yeah.
because I don't know if you've seen or if you've been a part of it, but I've seen like a bunch of banter on Twitter
Hmm.
from like San Francisco fans and Detroit fans,
Yeah.
especially since the Detroit Lions like the next day hired Ben Johnson, and
Hmm.
like um they're just like screaming at each other. And I want to see what your input was on that.
Honestly, I haven't seen too much like fan talk between fans, but I did see Mike Silver, I think was who it was, really insulted a lot of the Detroit media and specifically Eric Schlitt, which is probably my favorite writer slash podcaster slash personality in Detroit media. Saying just called us a poverty franchise, the whole bit. Um
Yeah,
saying that Eric doesn't have any credibility because he's a fan of the Lions and he covers them. So of course he's going to be biased and all this crap. Because his first tweet was that, oh, Anthony Lynn got hired by Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. Dan Campbell fired him. I think we know who knows more, like who's smarter,
yeah,
saying like, oh, obviously Kyle Shanahan's a better offensive mind. So obviously Anthony Lynn getting fired was a bad decision. I just think
yep.
they didn't mesh well. I think Anthony Lynn's got a good offensive mind in ways, but I never liked Anthony Lynn as a head coach for the Chargers, to be honest. Like I was the type that thought he was super overrated and it felt like I don't know. It felt even specifically offensively, he was overrated. Like his defenses played very well, but it seemed like his offense is just they were just super overhyped and he called the wrong stuff at the wrong times a lot of the time. And I remember watching a lot of Chargers games and just being like, I don't think he should be here anymore. And then he got fired, I think 2 or 3 years into his time there. And then he came over here
Yeah.
as an offensive coordinator. And I was like, okay, maybe he'll be better as an OC. But I've also heard rumblings that the reason he got let go is because he didn't believe in Jared Goff, right? And I think,
Hmm.
well, a lot of people say this is why Jared Goff played so bad the first couple weeks because Lynn was our offensive coordinator, so he called the plays. He didn't believe in Jared Goff, so he would call plays that limited Jared, if that makes sense. Like that's why we
Yeah.
didn't see much deep throws, and it seemed like he was scared and stuff like that. And then once Campbell took over, that kind of switched. And I think that might be really the biggest difference is that's why they didn't mesh is because
Mhm.
Anthony Lynn is the type that like I don't know, I just never really liked him that much, and I don't think he's like a special type of offensive mind. I think he's great in an assistant role. I mean, he's not a bad coach. It's just the fact that I don't think he's one of these like elite offensive minds or anything. He's solid. But I don't know.
Gotcha.
I like the addition to San Francisco though. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially with Mike McDaniel leaving. To get a guy like that in there.
Yeah, no, I really like it too. One thing that I've been impressed with Anthony Lynn, and like I don't necessarily know if it's just by him,
Mhm.
but he's a guy that is considered really good play caller in the one game,
Mhm.
which is what McDaniel also was really good at.
Right.
And from Buffalo to LA to last year's emergence to DeAndre Swift, it
Yeah.
seems like he's had some success with uh, the running backs there. So I'm interested to seeing if Elijah Mitchell is going to have any impact on this.
Mhm.
But no, I completely agree that like the atmosphere and the situation is completely different between the Lions and the 49ers. And I mean, who knows? I think that the Shanahan definitely made a good call based
Mhm.
off what he lost in McDaniel, and
Yeah.
that's it. Um,
I also think a lot of that has to do with Anthony Lynn knowing his place in San Francisco, whereas he came here as the OC, so he wanted it his way. Whereas I
yeah,
think when he goes to San Francisco, he'll know like my place is to give input. I'm not here to call plays or determine anything. And I think that was a big difference in Detroit is he was brought in to determine stuff. And then we decided he's not actually the best at that. So, he went and got a job elsewhere. But good for him. I mean,
yeah, cool.
yeah. But yeah, that's all
But
I
yeah,
got, I
that's all I
think.
got. I want to see what your input was on that.
All right. Well, that's it for this one. Appreciate y'all for coming by. Appreciate you for joining me again, Thomas.
Yeah, no problem. So we should discuss also that like we're going to do these on Fridays now
Oh
after
yeah,
Super
yeah.
Bowl and everything.
Oh yeah,
So
I
that our
forgot.
audience knows
Mhm.
when to catch us.
Yeah, so starting from now on, we're going to be doing these on either Friday nights or Saturday mornings, because work schedule and stuff gets busy during the weekday. And we were doing them on Wednesdays because throughout the season it's nice to get it right in the middle of the week to do the preview and the review for the week before and week after. But yeah, we're moving it to Fridays or Saturdays. So be on the lookout for us on your screens on Friday and Saturday, or Friday or Saturday,
Absolutely.
I should say. But yeah, that was a good catch too, because I completely forgot about that.
No worries.
But alrighty, we'll catch y'all on the next one.
See ya.